Welcome back, everyone. And in today's video lesson, we are going to look at how intervals work. So I have below staves, and so what I'd like to do is, let's start off by doing this. We're going to assume that we're dealing with the treble clef. Now, if you don't know how to read music, that's perfectly acceptable, but we do need to have this as a background, as a setup, to understand how intervals work. In sheet music, when we look at staff paper, we have a collection of lines and spaces. So the lines are going to be here. Let's do those in yellow. That's going to be here, like this would be a line, 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 line. And the spaces are going to be like here, 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 and here. Okay, so lines and spaces. And what you can see is that it alternates, that it goes space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space. Can you guess what's going to be next? It would be a line. So it's just space and lines back and forth. What we see is that we have a collection of 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know you're probably looking at this one, and you're probably looking at this one. In terms of the ones that are actually kind of interior to this staff, that we're going to only look at it as 5 lines and 4 spaces. Now, if we were going to put notes on this, we would have something like this: E, G, B, D, and F. And then over here, this would be D, F, A, C, and E. Okay, and so again we have just an alternation: D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, just going up the staff. If we draw these in something like this, this is what they would look like. Notes, and if we were to draw them in for the spaces, something like that. Okay, and so that's sort of an example. Now let's consider some intervals here. So what I want to do is start off with this, and I'm going to do from here to here, this interval. So we want to determine what this interval is. Okay, so the way that we're going to do this is we have to count every single line and space. So we're going to call a line and a space, we're going to call each of those an element. So we have to count every single element. So I notice that this is a space. Okay, so that's one element. Then I have a line, so this is a space. Then I have a line, that's another element. And then I have another space, which is going to be a third element. So that's 3 elements. And so we're going to refer to this then as a third. This is going to be a third. Now, I didn't say what kind of a third, so this is a general interval. And if you look, this is going from F to A, right? You see it's the first space to the second space. So an F to an A is considered to be a third. Okay, let's look at the next example. And what if I went from F to A sharp? What if I went from F to A sharp? Okay, well, let's count every single element. So I have the space, the line, and the space. There's still only 3 elements. So this would still be referred to as a third. Now, I know what you might be thinking here is, wait a minute, this is an A sharp, the other one was an A. How can those be the same interval? They're not the same specific interval, but they certainly are the same general interval. Let's look at another example. What if I had F to an A flat? Okay, so the little B there, it's a flat. So let's count every single element. Well, this is in a space, then it's a line, and then it's a space. So I have 3 elements there, and those 3 elements means it's going to be a third, okay, because there's 3 elements. Let's do another example. G to D, and I'll just kind of write them in here. That's G, and that's D. Well, counting every single element, line, space, line, space, line. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that would be referred to as, hopefully you get it, a fifth. That's a fifth. Okay, doesn't talk about what kind of a fifth, but generally it is a fifth, not specifically. Let's look at another one. Now, what if I happen to go the opposite direction? What if I happen to go from D to G, this direction? And this is a D, and this is a G. Well, notice that a G to D here was a fifth, so would D to G be a fifth then? Let's find out. Well, let's see. If we count every single element, then we have, this is a space. I know it's hard to see, but there's a space there. Line, space, line. So there are 4 elements here, so we're going to call this a fourth. Ooh, now that's interesting. G to D was a fifth. D to G is a fourth. Now let's go and look at another example. What happens if we do, say, E to D? E to D. That looks like a big jump. Again, we start from the bottom, so that's another thing you may have noticed. We always start from the bottom. And we're going to start here and go, okay, well, that's an element as the line, space, line, space, line, space, line. Count all those elements up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 elements, so this is going to be a seventh. That's going to be the interval. Now, what if we did E to F? Here's E to F. Okay, we have line to space, and that's it. And that's only 2 elements, line and space, so that is going to be a second. So there's some interesting things here with our intervals. One, we noticed the number of elements matters, right? So we count every single line and every single space. We also noticed that the order itself matters. If I went G to D, is not the same thing as going from D to G. The same can be said for other notes. If I went E to D, is not going to be the same thing as, say, D to E. We also notice that it doesn't really matter in terms of the general interval if you have a sharp or a flat or a natural, nothing there at all, that it still is the same general interval.